Hello everybody, welcome to my studio. Well, are you ready to paint today? We're going to paint a fun Christmas design, so let's grab our supplies and let's get painting. Got all my base colors on here. Let me tell you what I've done at this point because I wasn't recording as usual. Okay, the background is a mix of Blue Haven and white. One Blue Haven, two white. Then we put our line drawing on. I undercoated my hat, all of the hat, and the whipped cream, the apron, and the stripes. Those are all a mix of light cocoa and white. 1 to 2, 1 light cocoa, 2 white. Okay, the gingerbread is 2 coats of honey brown. The cup was undercoated with gray sky first, and then this red and this red are both Santa red. Everything gets 2 coats. The rim of the cup is white. And the reason I undercoated with gray sky here is because I wanted this red to look different from this red. So this red was painted on top of a light color, which was this light color that we painted the entire hat in with first, 2 coats. And this one was undercoated with gray sky, so this red is a darker red, more true to the bottle, and this is a little bit of a brighter red. So they are a little bit different. Not saying that when we get done they won't look the same, but right now you can definitely tell the difference. And then I did a wash inside here where the hot cocoa is with burnt umber, and I did it twice because my wash was very, very thin, very light. So now we're going to start shading on our gingerbread man. Now that I have my camera on and working, when I painted my background, I just painted it with a damp paint roller, 2-inch foam roller, so that I could get it done quickly and have a nice smooth background. But you can do whatever you want to the background. You could put the bokeh effect, which I love. You could put snowflakes all around in the background, which I did think about doing, but I think I'm just going to leave this a plain background. So now we're going to shade with some burnt umber on our gingerbread guy, or gal, whichever you want it to be. I am using a 10 flat, but you can use a 3/8 inch angle. I couldn't find a 3/8 inch angle that wasn't quite worn out. I'm going to have to order me some more, I think. And let's walk that just a little bit. I'm going to grab my mop brush so I can just soften that. No harsh stuff going on. We'll let that dry and we'll come down to the body part so we can shade on it. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. And I did put my lines back on my face features. So I've got that. Those are the only lines I needed to add back on. Now I painted this all in, and then I added my lines for my stripes. So that will be in the instructions. I painted it all that light color first and then added the line drawing for these stripes so that I would know where they went. Let's try and stay off of the, give me a damp brush here, the apron. I really hope this is going to turn out super cute because you know, I think this is a really cute little project, and I'm not going to shade on the apron yet until I get the apron painted in. I'm using just a light layer for a shading. You don't have to get anything too dark too quick. Pick up water as you need it. This brush seems to not be holding water very well. I'm going to shade here. We've got other places that we'll be shading on this gingerbread man, but we're just bouncing around it trying to get different areas that we need. So on the leg here, it kind of comes down like that. So that's the rest of the gingerbread man up in there. Let's get the side that has the paint. So this will be kind of dark in here. And I might want it to be a little light right there. Okay, we're going to go along the bottom of the arm. And while we're here, we'll just go ahead and go on each side of this stripe. Make sure your other paint is dry over here, or you're just gonna lift it. Okay, we'll go here. And I'm kind of have my brush tilted up so I can be up on that edge and not laying it flat so it doesn't carry my float super wide. This is how you can use a bigger brush and not have to keep switching out for smaller brushes. Just tilt that brush up and get that little lift there on the brush, and you can make tighter little floats. Let's go inside here. Let me get some more water. That's a little bit darker than what I want it to be. Mop that. A little bit of paint on the apron when I mopped it. I mopped on the chest area. Oh, he's looking so cute. Let's go under the mouth and under the eyes. And I'm tilting it up because the eye is very close to the mouth and I don't want to put my float on the mouth. Under the eyebrows. And I think I'll bring it down just a little bit on the sides here. And any place that you want to repeat, you can certainly repeat. Alright, let's go finish the legs with this color, this burnt umber color. And we want to go around our stripes. I'll go on the outside edge. He's looking super duper cute. Super, super cute. I think we'll put his eyes and mouth in. So I think they're going to be the same color that we did all these light colors. The light mocha and white mix. If I can get it out on my palette. we're going to do a 1 to 2 mix. So 1 and 1, 2. Mix, mix, mix. Some of that moisture out of my brush. Now, if you have a circle stencil that is this size, you can put these eyes in super duper quick. Make sure you keep them the same size. Don't let your brush get way out there. So we don't want to give a lot of pressure, so we want to make sure our paint has a little bit more fluid to it, so we're not giving pressure to the brush. That's when we'll get everything bigger than we want. Might have to go over those shade underneath those eyebrows again. And we'll repeat this. Make sure his mouth is rounded over here. You can just give him a simple smile if you want a simple smile. Without anything being great big. Alright, I'm going to dry that and get a second coat on there. Okay, let's do just a little bit of darkening in a couple of places on our shading. So this will just be the places where you want the deep color to be. So like right here. We want to go under the chin, I think, for a little bit of darker. Just lightly skim that on there. These corner places here, anything that is a corner or a V or a triangle, those are going to be your dark shadow places. So, you know, we want to give them the respect that they need. Now let's stay off the face there. Right here next to the face, you see this is a V or a triangle shape. And we want to put a little bit here on the legs and out here. This is kind of a little triangle there. Do the same over here. This is a little kind of triangle. And out here. And this is darker here. Alright. Let's do a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit of moisture in my brush. A little bit here. These aren't really triangles, but these will be our darkest areas. Clean up that. Okay, and I think on the, now you can go to a much smaller brush than I'm using here, right here where it curves in. I want to put just a little kiss of a darker. It makes all the difference. I think I'm going to have to go back underneath the chin a little bit. So these areas that curve in, let's give them a little bump of shading. A little bit here. here. I do want to keep it off the light color though. And we'll go here and here. I really need to get me some new brushes. These are getting just worn out, I'm telling you. You know, you just get brushes that you like to use and it's hard to let them go. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go back underneath the chin because I feel like it needs a little bit darker under here. And then I'm going to put a little bit back underneath the eyes and the mouth, just in the center part of each, and the eyebrows. Okay, that looks pretty good for the shading. Okay, let's add some highlights on here. Now we're going to dry brush. We're going to start with that mix that we used everywhere else, that mocha and white mix. And I'm just going to get a worn out kind of brush here. This one is kind of worn out. My favorite one is this one. Maybe I'll just go to my favorite one. This is a filbert brush that I've worn out pretty good. So you just want something that's kind of worn out. So our mix was 1 mocha. You can use this brush dry or wet, whichever way you prefer to use it. I'm going to load my brush up. I'm going to then offload, especially at the back of the brush where it's really hanging on to it. And then we're just going to start with a little bit too much paint. Let me take some of that off. We're just going to start with a little bit of dry brush. Now you can just do your regular float highlight if you want. You want some highlight in the center here, out here, along the chin. Give it some toasty goodness out here. You start with super light pressure. Only give pressure to the brush when you know that you don't have much paint left in there. You can tell it's getting less and less. Through the chest here. See, I can give more pressure now because I could tell I didn't have much left in it. That's why I didn't want all that paint back here in the back of this brush. Okay, oh, it's looking like a yummy cookie now. We want to repeat that. I'm going to repeat it with this color. And then we might do just a little bit of just white on here. So, just a little bit. If your first layer is pretty bright, you don't have to do a second layer, okay? And that looks pretty good for a highlight on there, I think. So I'm going to take the excess paint out of my brush and get just white. I'm just going to brighten up just a little bit. Like out here on the outer edges, maybe on the chin right here. This is just white in my brush now. A little tickle through the center. We're going to put some rosy cheeks in here. Get a little bit more white because I'm not putting a ton in my brush, so I have to pick up a little bit more. Just a little bit there. We're just doing a little bit of this. kind of just like right in the middle of those highlight areas. I'm gonna get a little bit more white. I feel like it's blending a little bit with the paint that was still in my brush. And that's fine because we didn't want stark white on here. Okay, repeat that white again if you need to. But I'm going to take my brush and remove the excess out and get some Santa Red, make a little light pink on my brush. Work that into my brush and then offload. I'm still doing the dry brush stuff. And we'll do some rosy cheeks here, light pressure. Circular motion, light pressure. Start giving hard pressure, you're going to have those hard lines that come out from this color. Super cute. We want to shade on our areas here, our eyebrows, eyes, mouth, and the frosting before we dot our eyes with some color. And so I'm going to use honey brown and just a very sheer color of this. We're going to go inside the eyes, at the bottom of the eyebrows. Lower part of the mouth. I'm using just the tiniest bit of paint here, working it into my brush with the water that's in my brush. That's how we keep things nice and soft. Okay, then we'll do each edge. Of our frosting areas. This is the honey brown. This is what we base coated our gingerbread in with. And that looks pretty good. I might do a little bit more on the mouth. I feel like the mouth could use just a little bit more. Keep going outside the mouth there. Try to stay in it. And that looks very, very good. Now let's dot the eyes, and I want to do that with dark chocolate. And I'm just going to find the largest paintbrush that I have and do it with the bottom of the paintbrush. I want a pretty good sized paintbrush here. Maybe I'll use one of my, that might be too big. Let's grab one of these smaller brushes here. This is just a stencil brush. It's got a fairly flat. Okay, could be a little bit bigger. Okay, that is super duper thick. So I'm going to take a damp brush and lift some of that paint out of there. Oops. I want it to dry fairly quickly. I don't want to take a long time for it to dry. I feel like that eye could be a little bit bigger. I should have used the bigger brush. And that's not working out, so I'm almost afraid to use the bigger brush. Well, that looks a little bit better. It's still kind of big, but, or kind of a little bit smaller than the other one, but I think we can manage it. Some of that thick paint out of the center. Okay, I think I'll do a little white highlight on the top of the eyebrows, top of the eyes. We're going to do a highlight in the chocolate area here, but for now we just want a little sort of a highlight. And we can go through the center of our things here, but I'm thinking I might do something different with these a little bit and a little bit, but right now we'll just go ahead and add a highlight with some white. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think the shading on that needs to be much whiter. And a little darker. Alrighty, he's looking super cute. I'm very happy with how he looks so far, so we're gonna move on. I semi-dried those eyes so I can get a highlight on here. On the eyes, that little dot in there, so we could finish up him for now. I think he looks really, really cute. Okay, what a cutie pie. I want to do something on here next to let it dry. I hope this is going to work out because I'm not sure I'm going to like it, but we shall see. I'm going to take my stencil here, and I just want this section through here, this part. And so I'm going to have to tape it off. I'm going to bring it over to the edge of the cup here. And I'm going to tape off at the top to hold it. And then I'm going to take my, this is my 1/4 inch tape that I can kind of manipulate a little bit. I have several different sizes on my website. I don't know if I can manipulate it on this stencil though. I'm going to follow the shape of the cup. This kind of tape you can kind of pull and stretch it a little bit. I'll have to move this to finish out the cup. So we'll see if that's going to work out. I need to tape across the top because I don't want these lines. And I need to tape on this edge down here. Right there. And then I don't want these snowflakes on here. So with that, I'm going to take my Scotch tape and cover those up. I mean, this is kind of a flimsy stencil. I don't know. This is one I made, but I don't think I've ever released this one. I have to change it up a little bit. Now you can just stencil these on here. I'm going to make sure I cover this up down here so I don't get wild and crazy with anything. This out here needs taped. And let's see. Another piece here because that looks like it's lifted there a little bit. Put a little tape this here. I'd rather have as much tape covering as much of this stencil that I'm not going to use as possible, because I don't want anything that I have to try and clean up. Okay, I got to tape that foot right there. Which could be a little tricky. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so get that all taped on there, and then we're going to use some of this love colored glitter text. Glitter text. It's like snow, only it's got glitter in it. And I want to try and put this on the stencil to see if I can get some kind of dimensional stuff on here. I mean, it may be a complete and utter fail, and I might have to I don't think this is going to work. I think I might just have to get some texture medium of some kind. I think I'm going to have to lift it all off of there. I don't know if this is going to work. Oh, look at that. It sure did. Worked great. Okay. I'm going to have to wait for it to dry to finish it out because I can't. I'll be anxious to see how this dries. I've not used this before, so I don't really know, how it's going to work. But I think I'll get my stencil cleaned up while it's drying. I definitely don't want this stuff drying on my stencil. And then I will finish the rest of that area. And if you don't want to do this, you can just stencil that on there with this mocha mix. You could probably even do white to make it different from everything else. If you don't want to continue with that mocha mix, or do an equal mix of the mocha and white. Those are some options that you can do, but that's looking good so far. Okay, I let this dry for about an hour, maybe just a little over an hour. It's probably not 100% dry all the way through, but it's dry enough that I can do something. And hopefully we'll be able to make sure I line that up on those. Hopefully we will be able to add some shading onto this. We just got this little area to do right here. We don't have a lot. So, because that's raised just a little bit there, I'm hoping it won't look terrible. Air bubble in it. That's kind of weird. Okay, that turned out pretty good right there. So now I just need to let that little bit dry. It's got a high spot there, so I'm going to smooth that a little bit. right, we're going to get this dry so that we can continue on with our painting. So this was a practice stencil that I cut out, and obviously it didn't cut down here 2 lines like I wanted, and those 2 lines right there were very difficult to separate when I did my stenciling. But I think what I'm going to do is recreate this stencil without this row right here and without the circles, because the circles are okay on there, but I'd rather just have the snowflakes and the lines. So but any small snowflake stencil that you have, you can use for a row on here, and then you can paint the lines in. You know, it doesn't have to be done, you know, with this product that I used. But I thought it would be something fun to try on here and see how we're gonna like it. I do like the dimension. Let me see if I can get it in the camera where you can see the raised dimension. Plus it has glitter, and if it's not enough glitter before it dries, you can sprinkle more glitter on it to make it even more glittery, which is what I should have done because I love a lot of bling on my Christmas. So I'll probably put some glitter on the frosting here to get a little bit more bling on this design. Okay, this is all dry down here. This is a little bit thicker than what this is because I didn't skim my palette knife over it once I put it on like I did with this. I needed to skim it across one more time. So that is really thick right there. That edge might cause a little bit of a problem with shading, but we'll do the best that we can. I want to go back up here to our gingerbread man real quick because I want to wash over him with some honey brown. I think he kind of lost his brown with the highlights. And if our wash is light enough, it will not take away our highlights. So we still have those highlights on there, and that makes him look so much better, brings him back to that sweet cookie brown. And it's just a wash. So you can see it right here on my palette. It's mostly water with just a little bit of paint. I've just tinted some water. We're going over the highlight areas mostly. And that makes him look much better. I'm very happy with that. I think I want to work on his apron and get his apron done. So we're going to put some green out and some red for our berries. I think I need to get another bottle of red. This one's just about empty. So we're going to put holly leaves, well, sort of holly leaves and berries on here. Okay, I want to dry brush through the apron before we add our leaves and berries on here. And I'm going to use a damp brush, but I got it, it's my old scruffy brush, but I got it wet and then I removed pretty much all the moisture. But it's not dry, so that means it's going to let go of the paint easier than if it was not pre-dampened. So I want to dry brush through the center of the apron here. With some white. And I don't know how well this will show up on camera for you guys. Let's put some in the center of the straps. I can see my color, but you may not be able to see it too well. Now this is a wetter paint than if we were to take a dry brush like we did on the cookie. Okay, I'm not really sure if that's translating too much for you guys. I can see it on my end, but I wish that you could see it a little bit better. It's very, very subtle in through the center and on the straps. You can do it as many times as you want to make sure that it's going to stand out. And let's add some little leaves and berries on here. So I'm not necessarily going to make holly leaves. That would just be too difficult to make on such a small area. So we're just going to make a couple of little leaves here and there, just with a small round brush. Just wherever you want them. Maybe you can just see a little bit going here and there. We do want them to kind of come off, so I'll have a damp brush so that I can make some that look like they're going off of the edge here. You can tape these straps off with a piece of tape, but to me that takes far longer than just getting a damp brush and cleaning up an area. Okay, let's see if that's going to be enough. I might have to add a couple more on here. So I'm just going to dip into my red with the same round brush and add 3 dots, or 2, whichever, by these little berries, or leaves. Okay, that's a ginormous berry right there. Didn't really want my berries to be that big, so I might have to remove those. You can see a little bit of berry there. I don't know if I can remove these without making a big mess. Okay, let me give that another shot, because that was really bad. Okay, that looks super cute. Make this one a little darker. I think I might just do 3 berries on each one. I think that would just look the cutest. It's got 3. Let's put 3 here. Make that one just a little bit nicer. That one's got 3, and we can't see that one, so we'll just go with that. Okay, I want to dry this so that I can shade on here. Get those berries as dry as I can. We're going to shade with the honey brown. Definitely want to make sure that your red is dry. I think I might add a touch of burnt umber to that, because I think that shading could be just a little bit darker. So I'm going to mix those 2, and we'll darken this right here. And our outside edges. Get a little bit of moisture, because I don't want that to be super dark. Let's do a little bit here. We'll just go around the whole entire thing. I think that'd be best, since we kind of dry brushed white through the center. So we'll just do the whole apron with that very soft mix of honey brown and burnt umber. Okay. I got a little splash of that honey brown right there on my. So I just want to get that off of there. I'm going to do the peppermint up here and the cup together, so we're going to go work on the cocoa now. Okay, so I'm unsure of what color I want to do a little bit of shading in there to make it look a little bit more like a coffee. I'm going to put some dark chocolate out just because I'm thinking it might need some dark chocolate. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on my brush. I'm going to try not to have a ton of moisture, but I need a little bit for it to like move. And we'll put some back here. I think that's going to have to be just a touch darker than that, I think. So, I haven't used black in this project. I really didn't want to use black. Let me see if I can darken that with some red. To give it a little bit of a different look. So I just added a little bit of red to my dark chocolate. We're going to go around that for now. We're going to bring some of that down into this. I just want to create some varying colors in this coffee stuff so that we can add our melting Cool Whip into it. Then underneath here is, you can see a little bit of it. Got it on the edge of my rim of my cup there. Could add green to that. Green makes a much darker, makes that brown much darker. So either way, red or green, whatever you got. I think I need to highlight that edge right there. Okay, that's super bright. I'll take some honey brown over that as soon as it is dry. Okay, let's make sure that's good and dry. And let's add a little bit of, okay, I think that's dry. So now we want to create a little bit of melting of the Cool Whip in here. I'll do this area first. So I'm going to dampen this with some water. A little bit of that water off my brush. I want it pretty wet here, but I don't want it to run wet, you know. I want to see a lot of glistening water. Okay, I could use some extender water mix if I wanted to here. While it's wet, I'm going to put some white in here. In a few places. And because it's wet, we can kind of play with it. That's why if you can't move very quickly, you might want to use a little bit of extender in your water. To get some of that done, we'll definitely go over that. So let me wet this place. And some white. And then I'll just take the corner of this brush and just barely go into that so it can blend out, just soften it. So we've got a little bit of that foam on there. We're going to come in there and do a little bit more on that foamy stuff. I definitely want it to be whiter. And I do need to do this area between the legs here, so we know that it is part of the drink underneath there. So now I'm just going to go back in with a little bit of a corner load wash and make that a little bit more in there. This is just the look of some melted Cool Whip in there. Okay, we don't have to really get too intense about this. Okay, we've got that done. Now if you want to put a little brightness, get your brush with no extra water and then just come in here in a few places and perk that up if you need to or want to. Just a little dab here and there. And then we want to deepen our shading, especially next to the body. So we really need that to be dark. I think at this juncture I am going to have to add some black in here. I really didn't want to have to add black. It's such a stark color. So I'm going to mix the black and either the burnt umber or the dark chocolate. Make more like a soft black color. You can just grab a soft black. And we want it darker through here. A little bit through here. Back in here. Try and stay off my white areas. A little bit of shadow. And then let's see if we can, now you might have to get a much smaller brush than what I've got here. I'm going to go right next to the rim of the cup and put a little bit of go back with my little round brush with some straight white so I can just kind of squiggle in some lines in here. All right, that looks pretty good for the coffee area. I think we're done with that. So we're gonna move on now. I wanna finish out the Cool Whip before we do the hat and cup. Okay, on our frosting, we're gonna do a couple of things. So I'm gonna take some of the light mocha and some of my, probably my honey brown, and I'm gonna mix them. And we're going to create some very soft shading of some layers of stuff going on here. Okay, just kind of give the illusion of stuff going on here. Some different layers. I don't know, we could have another layer down here if you want. Doesn't really matter. A little bit of shadow here and here. So we can separate that. I definitely want a little bit of a darker shadow, so I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber. And this is for at the base where maybe some of the coffee is coming up on it. So maybe that little line that I put in there, we don't really need that. A little bit more burnt umber. Just kind of wiggle it. Wiggle it along there. Okay, that gives us a little bit of soft shading on there. We don't want to do a whole lot because we're getting ready to add some fun stuff to it, I hope. So we'll see how this is going to work out. Okay, so we've got the shading on here. Now at this point, you can highlight with white. You'll want to highlight on the tip, on these outer edges that don't have shading. So you'd highlight here, and here, and here, and here, and here. Okay, you want to do it along the top of your shading lines and the outside edges where, you know, it's visible. You'd probably have a little bit in here as well. You do that with white. You have to do it probably 3 or 4 times to get it to be bright, okay? But I'm going to use something different on here. So I'm going to slide my painting up out of the way for a moment while I show you what I'm going to be doing here. Okay, I've got a quart-size freezer bag here, and I do prefer the ones that don't have the zipper, that just have the, you know, snap it closed, but I didn't have any of those, so I'm going to use this one. So let me open this, or try to open this. Bag won't open. Just wants to stay zipped shut. Okay. So what I want to do is go to one of these corners down here, and I want to cut a hole to put this piping tip in. Now this is a Wilton piping tip. I just happen to have a couple of extras of this size. This is a 21. I would recommend getting the plastic ones that you can buy at Walmart or even at Michael's. Probably Hobby Lobby sells them too, I'm sure, because, you know, then you don't have to worry about using one of your better piping tips. Now, I've not ever used a quart bag that's been doubled like this in the corner, so we'll see how this is going to work out for my tip. I'm going to cut an angle, which that's going to be way too big. Yeah, because that bag is Yeah, see, I should have pulled that out. So let's see if I can pull it. I probably can't pull it out with tearing the bag up, so I'm going to have to go get a different bag. I think I have some bags behind me that I can use. Okay, I've got a smaller bag here. Use any bag that you have. A sandwich bag would be okay. They're just a little bit thinner, so a little bit hard to, you know, grip the bag. So I'm going to cut the corner, just a little bit of it. I don't want to cut a lot. I want to put my piping tip into that corner. I don't want it to come out, so this is where tape is going to come in. Oh, where's my tape? It's out here already. So I'm going to tape this bag onto this piping tip. I don't want anything to come out between the bag and the tip, and I don't want my tip to get pushed out. So I'm going to tape it on here with a few pieces of tape. I want to make sure it's good and attached, the bag and the piping tip together. Okay. So if you've done any cake decorating, this will be easy for you. If you haven't, don't struggle with it. Just, you know, cut your hole. It's probably going to be too big to begin with, but that's okay. I'm going to find a spoon. Alright, I've just got a old spoon that I use here in my studio. It's a plastic spoon. I just wash it off and reuse it. Okay, this is the Love Color frosting, and we're going to put it on, and then we're going to let it dry completely. It doesn't say how long it takes for it to dry, so we'll see how long it takes. Ooh, that's creamy. Feels just like frosting. I'm not kidding. That stuff is super cool. You won't need a lot. I'm going to fold this down and then make a little tunnel so I can put it in there so I won't get it all up around the edge of the and I'm not worried about having too much in here because I can squirt this back into this container. So now I'll pull my edges up, so now my edges up here are clean. I'm going to push that down so that, and then this is where I'm going to grip it, where all that paint is. I'm going to try and hold that tight so it doesn't go up into the bag. And then this is how it will pipe out. Just give it a little squeeze and we'll pipe it out. Okay. So hopefully I've got enough in this bag to do my frosting, my whipped cream here. This is going to be kind of the highlight that I'm making. Let me wipe the tip off. And you can go with a much smaller. You can go with a much smaller tip that doesn't leave quite as big of a area, and I don't want those little tips right there. I mean, that would be good for the top if you wanted to go up to the top and do something like that, but I don't want those there. And I've got some on his hand, so I want to try and remove some off of his hand. Let me get a bigger brush here. You can apply this with a paintbrush as well. You just won't have those lines in there, like for frosting. And then I think while it's wet, I might sprinkle some glitter on it. So I tried not to go over all of my shading areas so we could still have that little bit of shading in there. I'm not sure that I like it that way or not. I feel like it needs to be like filled in, but I think we're gonna, like right here, I feel like it needs a little bit more. Wipe off the tip. I'm just squeezing real easy, and then as I'm wanting to release, I'm letting go of the pressure and then just kind of lifting up slowly. Let's see if I can gently blend that down into there. Can't get it off my brush. I'm going to get this little bit right here. Now you could take this and put it in your coffee as well. I really feel like right here, because the Cool Whip goes underneath. Need some right here. So I'll put a little bit and then I'll clean it up with my brush by just taking the tip of that and smoothing it out and then getting it off of the little guy right there. Picking up a little bit of that I put on my palette to show you how to use it to kind of fill that in. Get a little fuller. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Now, I don't know how long this is going to take to dry. This took about an hour to dry down here. But let me get some glitter. I want to put some glitter on this. I'm going to move my stuff out of the way because I certainly don't want to get glitter in it, my frosting stuff. Any that I have left in my bag, I'm going to squeeze back into the container. Clean up my bits here. It can be messy, so if you don't like messy when you paint, you might just want to do the highlighting like I showed you. I'm going to sprinkle some glitter on this. Okay, this is the Glamour Dust Crystal Glitter. Not very much in this bottle. I want to make this a little glittery. You don't have to put a ton on here. It's definitely going to stick to it because it's wet. Try and tap that off without knocking all my frosting off of there. And then we've got a little sparkle in our glitter. How fun is that? Can never have too much bling on Christmas stuff as far as I'm concerned. That's why I wish I'd have come back and put a little bit more in that other stuff there. Gentle tapping. I don't want to knock my frosting off. So I'm going to lay this flat so that it gets completely dry. And then we'll come back and finish up our hat and our cup, shading underneath. And I don't know if I'm going to do something else. I'm thinking about putting peppermints in the corner, some little round peppermints, do something a little fun back there, so we'll see. But for now, we're going to get this dry. All right, let's finish this up. Well, we're going to work on the hat. And I'm going to start by shading the hat with just a kind of washy color of Santa Red. Which isn't going to show on our red stripes here because they're the same color. But we're going to go along here. all my glitter on there. That looks so pretty. Really like that. Okay, so on the hat brim, we're going to take some deep burgundy. We'll see if this is going to show up. I may have to add a little bit of black to it. Yeah, let's add just a tiny bit of black to that. You could also add green to it to darken it up. Do this edge over here. Deep burgundy with just a little bit of lamp black. We're just darkening that up a little bit. Okay, we'll probably bring that in a little bit better. I want to put a white dot up here in the center of this. So I'm just going to get some paint on the end of my paintbrush handle and put a dot right there. Maybe make it a little bit bigger because this is a pretty big peppermint hat here. And we'll let that dry so that we can shade on it again. I'm going to go along the upper edge here with the same mix that I just did down here on the hat. And get a little bit darker of a shadow. Make sure I don't go into my little dot I put there. We'll be shading around that in a minute. I'm going to dry that because I want to darken it and bring it over farther. Now this stuff here, I'm not really sure how long it took to dry because I had a lot of things that I had to work on over the past couple of days, so it has been actually at least 2 days since I worked on this project. So I know I checked it at about an hour and it wasn't quite dry, so it probably took a couple of hours for it to dry completely. I'll give that a little bit of a mop, just lightly, kind of smooth it out. Go over to this side. I'm repeating it, but I'm also taking it out farther. A little bit more of a mix here. Get all the way to the edge there if I can, and then bring it over, remove it from there and remove it from the face. Let's very gently mop that, gently. Okay, let me dry that because I got to get some on the front edge right there. So you should be able to see that the darkest areas are on the outside edges. And then it kind of starts fading in as it goes in towards the center. A little bit more water. Alright, I'm going to do a repeat up here on the, out here. I want to bring that in a little bit. So I'm going to do it with just the burgundy this time. work it into my brush with a little bit of water so that it's more of a sheer color, and make it just a little bit wider. I think I might just take it the whole length of the hat here. Give it more of that peppermint shape. That's pretty dry right there in the center, so I can go ahead and do a little bit of let's put a little bit of black. This is that burgundy. I've got a really sheer wash of this color. It definitely needs to be more paint, less water on my brush, so I'm going to wipe out the moisture. And I can touch up the white, so I'm not worried if I get some on it. This does need to be darker. Could be even a little bit darker, so get a little bit of black in there. Okay, that looks much better. And then we'll go around the outside edge, just a tiny little bit of black with that burgundy. Make sure we go over the red this time. I do want to get that off of the blue. I don't have any blue mixed that I can use to touch that up. Mop brush. Okay. Right here I got a hard line. So I'm just going to dampen that and then take my mop brush and try and soften that line out. Okay, this hat looks pretty good. Let's darken here. I just have burgundy now because I see a couple of places where I didn't get close enough to the brim. I erased a little paint there on the hat, so I needed to get that touched up. I do have some loose glitter on here that I need to kind of brush off with a dry brush. Now I do want to say, if you plan on varnishing this, you might want to save this to the very last step and put it on after you've varnished your piece. Okay, let's highlight on the hat and the brim. Okay, so for the brim, let me get a little bit bigger of a brush here. We're going to just dry brush across the center of the brim. Okay, I'm going to use my worn out old brush here. Just use any kind of worn out brush. I'm going to load some white in my brush. And I did pre-dampen my brush, but I took all the moisture out. And then remove the white paint. And we're going to dry brush through the center here. Very light pressure, because you don't know how much paint is really in your brush or if you got enough of the moisture out. All those factors are going to determine how your paint comes off of your brush. So I'm going to get a little bit more white. We'll do that a couple of times. I definitely want to make sure I've got all the moisture out. I feel like there's still moisture in it. And the paint's going to put a little moisture in it. So, alright, then we're going to go highlight. We're going to dry brush a highlight first. Okay, we're going to repeat. Sometimes you have to repeat up to 3 times to get it the brightness that you want. I'm not sure I'm liking that highlight there. I think it's just too straight. So I am going to remove what I can with the baby wipe. Because it's dry brushed on there, I did use a little moisture. It'll be a little bit harder to remove, but not impossible. So I'll just kind of scrub that off of there. I'm not liking the shape on there too awful much. I will go ahead and finish up here with this part, and then I'll come back to that. So I'm going to take my detail liner now and create that brightest highlight in there. Ooh. A bright little highlight on the hat. I think on this area, I think I will do a back-to-back float. I'm going to wash over that with some Santa Red, because that was our base color, and get it back to red. Go right into your shading color so you don't have any weird transitions. Alright, let me get that dry. Alright, I'm going to use a flat brush to do this back to back. So bring my palette over here so you can see I'll load my brush. I've got water in my brush. You can see it's very moist right here where I'm working. You can see the water kind of beads up right there. I'm going to work this into my brush, both sides of it, with that water. I don't want it to come across my brush. I want it to stay right on that one edge. I'm using a flat brush. And so you can see I've only got paint right there on that area. And I'm going to do a stroke down the center. Kind of walk it over. And And then I'll flip it over and do one right next to it. Even slightly on top of it is okay. We don't want to have any gap. And then I'm just walking this over because I'm laying water down as I lay the paint down, so I can walk that over. Now I'm going to mop it, especially down that center. I don't really want to see that hard line there. And then remove the moisture from my brush. The side's already dry. I'm going to remove some of the white that I got up here on the hat. I can reshade along that top edge, so it's not a problem. I didn't really want to do that. Remove that with my finger. Okay, have to let that dry, and then I'm going to repeat it. If it is difficult for you to float, you can pre-dampen this area and then do your back-to-back floating. So when you pre-dampen, you don't want to have extra moisture in your brush, so I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to get water in my brush and put some on here. That's a little bit too much. I'm going to remove a little moisture out of my brush. And I'm going to dampen this area. I'm going to touch my paper towel to wick out the excess moisture because I don't want a bunch of moisture in my brush, because I put all my moisture on here. So then we'll just apply this again. I'm going to go ahead and mop that outer edge. And we'll do it on this side. Okay, now I'm going to mop. Make sure my mop brush is dry. I'm going to go through that center so I can take that hard line out and then just mop these outer edges to soften it. And now I'm just removing some of that moisture out of there. Okay, now you know if you get it too wide or you don't like it, at any point you can go in with your red and take that down. More burgundy here. Okay, let's dry that. And if you're happy with it, you can leave it like it is. If you want it a little bit brighter, you could go down the center with just some white for a little shine. Okay? All right, let's finish the cup here. Now, I'm going to see if my deep burgundy will be dark enough to shade in some areas. Otherwise, I'll have to mix some either burnt umber or lamp black. Either one will work. So I don't think that's quite dark enough. So I'm going to add burnt umber to my burgundy so it doesn't make it as dark as it does when I use lamp black. It'll make it a little bit of a softer shading. Probably 2 burnt umbers and 1 burgundy, or an equal mix. Equal mix might be best, yeah. I like the equal mix better, so we're going to go underneath the cup rim here. We'll go around the legs for a shadow. I need a little bit of moisture in my brush so my paint will move. Try to stay off areas you don't want to get paint on. I'm using a 1/2 inch angle, but if using a 3/8 is going to be more comfortable for you, then you can go to a 3/8. I would not go any smaller than a 3/8. If you can learn to manipulate a larger brush in tight areas, it will help your painting skills immensely. Okay, so there is underneath the brim. I'm going to do that same mix, which is burgundy and burnt umber. I'm going to do it down the side of the cup. I like to clean up my red mistakes as quickly as possible because reds can be a little staining. I'm going to go down to here because we're going to highlight right there. Okay, it's a little bit trickier when you get into these raised areas, but just go right over them and try and get your float as close to them as you can. I don't want to leave any light colors on that outer edge there. If your paint's not showing up very well, then go ahead and add a little bit more burgundy, or not burgundy, burnt umber to your mix. That's going to help. Okay, let's go on the bottom down here. This is going to be mostly dark. Burgundy and burnt umber, deep burgundy and burnt umber. Okay, we definitely have to bring our floats over farther. But let's go work on the handle. Handle, I could definitely probably go to a smaller brush. Okay. I'm going to go on the inside edge. I'm thinking about putting snowflakes in the background, but I'm not 100% sure I want to do that, so that's a thought. It's currently flying through my brain. I kind of develop designs as I'm painting them, so I don't always know how they're going to turn out. Alright, that is just a first little shading. We need to put some shading up on the rim of the cup, and for that I'm going to do just some deep burgundy. A little wash of that up here. And over here. Don't go into your background, that's pretty important. A little touch of color there. We'll probably add to that. Let's go along the inside rim here. Make sure I'm going to like that burgundy on there. I might want to switch that to blue or something. Let me get some Blue Haven out. I feel like I could add the Blue Haven in somewhere. Okay, so it's all right if there's a little bit of that on there. I'm gonna definitely go to my smaller angle brush here. I feel like I can do better. All right, I'm gonna take my Blue Haven. It needs to be just a touch darker. So, I don't really want to darken it with black. I do need to darken it. A little tiny touch of red makes it more purpley. That's not going to be dark enough, so I'm going to have to add a tiny bit of black into my Blue Haven. Just a tiny bit, because I do not want to get another color out here. So Blue Haven and just a tiny bit of black. It makes kind of a blue-gray. Goodness, I'm having a hard time painting this morning. I'm going to come back with some white along that inside edge. That looks much better. Still needs to be a little bit darker. So on the next pass, I will probably darken that. Yeah, I'll just have to make a little bit darker of a blue-gray, I think. All right, we're going to do our second shading on our cup. We're going to repeat our floats, that burgundy and burnt umber mix. Make sure I've got moisture and water in my brush. Now, you have to have pretty much an equal amount of moisture and paint in your brush when you do a walkover float. Walk it out, but you still only have paint. Paint is about a third of the way over, and the rest of the brush is got water in it. If you don't have the water, you can't do a walkout float. So we'll do a walkout float on these edges. So I'm laying water down at the same time that I'm laying paint down, because I'm putting my brush flat and giving gentle pressure. And then I can just continue to move the brush over into the water. It's going to take the paint off of my brush and put it into those wet areas. And that's called a walkout float. okay? I may want it to go even wider because I want this cup to be well shaded here. So it's a little bit harder when you're going over some textured areas. But just do the best that you can. So I'm going to walk over. Walk. More paint. Into those wet areas. And then you do want to mop to soften, if you can. I'm going to go under here real quick. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black to my brush because I want this to be darker under here. I still have that mix of burgundy and burnt umber, but I did pick up a little bit of lamp black. I'm not going to worry about getting outside on the blue here because I'm going to be shading underneath here. Okay, I'm not going all the way to the bottom. I'm just, see down here, I did not put any of that dark color. Okay, just underneath there, kind of widened it just a little bit. Okay. Go back out so we can see. I want to go underneath the rim there, but I've got to try this. I still feel like those side areas, this one I got over pretty far, so I just need to darken right there. This one needs to come over farther. And then I'll get my smaller brush to do the handle, but I want to go underneath the rim and darken that. And this we don't necessarily have to widen. We just need to darken it. Textured areas can be a little bit tricky, but don't give up on them because they are fun to do. Okay, that looks much better there. I don't know how much highlighting we're going to do on this cup. I'll definitely do some down here. But this kind of creates a highlight in the center already. Okay, so that should be dry. So let me get more paint water on my brush. Because I want this to come over farther. This area down here is going to be highlighted. So over here, I walked it out pretty good, but I need it to be just a scooch darker. Well, I don't like it on that snowflake, so Put a little bit of white paint back on that one. This one could have just a touch on it to perk it up, but it's mostly shaded like this one. Okay, that looks better. I'm trying to make them a little bit more equal, like, you know, I want to make sure that the highlight area coming from there goes where it needs to go. Okay, let me finish the shading on the handle. So with this one, I'm going to add a little bit of black into my burgundy and brown mix, because I really need this area right here to be dark. Maybe just a touch more black in there. To invest in some better brushes here. Mine are getting wore out. It's not like I don't have brushes. I have them. Just you get used to using certain ones and you don't want them to ever like wear out. Okay, that looks better there. Kind of like I did down here, I just added a little tiny bit of black to the burgundy and brown mix to darken it. And when you go to paint, if you're not noticing any difference, a tiny little dot more of black. You can get too much black real fast. That looks pretty good. A little bit more shadow in a couple of places here. You know, those V areas. Oops. That was a little bit of that black mix. Red, brown, black. Alrighty. Let's add a little highlight on here. And I'm just going to put a highlight, I think, down here on the bottom. Maybe a little bit of a highlight down here. I'm just kind of dry brushing. Stuck my arm in the paint and then transferred it out here. My paint wasn't dry on that edge. Let's wide angle out. Wide angling out always helps. Okay, out here on the handle, we need a highlight. It can be dry brushy as well. And right now I'm thinking I'm not going to dry brush any on the any more on the cup, because I feel like that's creating some highlight in there. So now we just need to shade underneath the cup. Let's shade underneath it. I'm gonna do a mix of black and burnt umber. You could use dark chocolate as well. This is gonna get kind of a soft black color. Use some water to thin it down a little bit. And we're just gonna go underneath here. Maybe there's a little bit of shadow coming from the handle. I'll just put a little bit there. The more water you have in your brush, the better this is going to turn out. So, because we really don't want any super hard edges. We want everything to stay kind of soft. You can mop it, repeat it. We want it to be the darkest right underneath. And don't lose your shape. Brush. That's not a mop brush. Okay, that's got that done. So now I'm trying to decide if I want to put some snowflakes in the background. I thought about putting a couple of peppermints in the corner, but I think we got enough peppermints. So I'm going to grab my snowflake stencil and show you how you can put extra stuff in here after you've completely painted your design. Okay, so I've got my snowflake stencil and I've decided I want to put snowflakes in the background, and I'm going to do white snowflakes. You could certainly do some blue ones. So we want to have a baby wipe handy, because some of these I want to go behind elements. So I'm going to put my snowflake right up to that element. And if I have any paint on it, I'm just going to remove that very, very gently. Okay. Now when we get to this this thick stuff here, you'll probably want to add the snowflakes in the beginning. So I'm going to suggest that on my packet. And I don't want to have to go back over these, so I want to make sure that I've got them the color that I want them to be before I take my stencil up. So that looks really nice. But definitely do snowflakes before you put your frosting stuff in here, if you're doing frosting. Now if you haven't done frosting, this won't be a problem putting in your snowflakes. Super cute. You just got to press it down as hard as you can in the area where you want it to lay flat. Okay. sure you take some off the edge. And then put a little, you know, some little ones in there, depending on your snowflake stencil. This is one that's on my website. I use it a lot. Okay, let me put a little piece of one, or a little one up here. Okay, now we're going to move over. And I'm going to put this one here. These beautiful soft little snowflakes, I love them. Big one here. This little one over here. I'm going to stick a little one in here. And we're going to move on down here. Let me get my thing from spinning because I don't want to be stenciling and have it stencil right out. Okay, that one I know I'm going to have some red. Okay. Let's see. I haven't used this one because it's kind of wiry, but we'll see if we can get it in here. That's not too bad. So I'm back to being on a little bit of a raised area right here. Okay, I'll touch that up with a little bit of dark paint, I think. I think I'll put this big one here. See, you can go around everything. You just have to take your time. So that one I'm going to have some cleaning up on the edge of the cup. You can do this with a brush. I'm just using my baby wipe and the very tip of my fingernail there. Okay. small ones in here. I think I'll do this one. And this one. Try to do that one. A little bit of cleaning up. Clean this up. I think I'll have to do the same as over there because I'm in this really textured stuff, and put a little bit of my dark color back in there. My burgundy and a little bit of black. See, right here on the edge, I don't have any color. I need to have some color on there. Over here I got some white paint on it. I'm just going to touch that up. Okay. And that's how easy it is to add some snowflakes around into our background. Before I clean my stencil brush, I want to make sure I'm happy and I don't have any places that I want to put another snowflake. I feel like something needs to be tucked behind that. But I'm not sure I can get one tucked behind it. Let's give it a shot. Okay, we did it. Look at that. I have another one tucked over here. This seems like awful big open space right here. Okay, that one needs a lot of cleaning up. Alrighty-dighty. Thinking it looks okay. I think that looks good. I am going to rinse out my brush. Because I think it looks pretty darn good. I could take my float on this side over a little bit farther. But I've got a snowflake there now, so I won't. I think this one I'm going to call a done project. I think it is adorable. I love it. Again, a snowflake before you start painting your whole design, since that was something I wanted to add after the fact. It got done at the end, but you know, you can do it at the end. Don't think that you can't. I need to touch this up in here because I can still see that light color. It needs to be not light. Alrighty. We're going to call this one done. I really enjoyed painting this one. How fun was this little gingerbread cookie guy in his hot cocoa? No, he's in mocha. He's in a peppermint mocha with his Cool Whip. One of my favorite drinks, peppermint mocha for the holidays. So that's it on this one, you guys. I enjoyed painting this. If you are watching all the way to the end, please hit that hype button if it's the first 7 days this comes out, and help YouTube give it a boost to put it out to more people. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. You can head over to lonnalamb.com and grab your packet for this. Thanks so much for painting with me, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.